we are privileged to have someone who is very unique and special in her own right. She's a journalist by training, she's detail-oriented, and she's a very good people relations person. And of course, she holds a master's degree in global sports management. She has worked with various national and international media organizations, and as a researcher, she has contributed a lot in terms of several papers and magazines, which she has shared her knowledge with in writing. And she's currently the Media and Marketing Officer of the Nigerian Universities Games Association, NUGA, a member of the African University Sports Federation's Committee for Education and Communications. Mrs. Chidiebere Ezeani is actually the facilitator we're going to be having today, lead the discussion on the topic, More Than an Athlete, Lending Our Voice to Change in Our Communities. Would agree that the master series for the previous editions we've had have been very exciting, and today is not going to be an exception, as she's going to bring all of her experience to bear on how collegiate sports can be a tool for this level of positive change we're actually trying to influence across Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world. So on behalf of participants joining from across Nigeria and other parts of the world, it is my pleasure to welcome you, Mrs. Chidiebere Ezeani, to the 4th edition of this year's Masterclass series. I'm your host for today, and by name Akwe Michael. I'm going to be taking you through this class and helping you coordinate the audience, so the conversation will be very interesting and impactful. So on behalf of all of us, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here. It's never too early, nor late to share an experience or share a thought. So thank you to the HiFL team for having me, and I'm very grateful to be here.
Okay, thank you very much for those thoughts. So today's edition of the Masterclass has been divided into 2 basic segments. We're going to be having our facilitator, Mrs. Chidiebere, take us through her presentation. She has put together a very beautiful presentation for us on the topic today. And we'll be taking questions from participants afterwards to shed more light and further transverse the topic before us for another 30 minutes. So we encourage participants that as Mrs. Chidiebere takes her presentation, you put your questions together and you send them to us so we can collate them and share them so that she can be able to adequately respond. So at this juncture, it is my singular pleasure to hand over the platform to our facilitator so she can, of course, go ahead with her presentation. So it's up to you.
Okay, but if you could enable me to share my screen, that would be fantastic.
Yes, of course, you are enabled.
Okay. Okay, like Michael said, we're looking at more than an athlete, how we can lend our voices for change, especially in our communities. And it doesn't begin to sink any deeper or more resounding than this particular image that the Super Eagles of Nigeria put up during the NSAS protests. This is iconic. It's none that we've ever seen before in the country. And most of what we'll be talking about will be circling around how these athletes and you as young athletes have the voice, that more than a voice than you think you do. But before we go any further, Michael went on about a lot of things, but let me tell you some fun things about me so you know how close to reality and life that we're really all about. Now, first of all, I am a champion, MVP. Go and ask anyone in the Lagos State Sports Writers Association. They know I ball hard.
Wow.
I'm a this was my first time reporting university sports. I was at the 2015 World University Games and have been to two others since then. As it's so much fun in the university sports system. This is the African University Sports Community and students advocate. So you are more than an athlete in your life. The funnest thing I did was report on the Women's World Cup and of course the Men's World Cup. So that was fun. And most importantly, I am a social activist as well. I try as much as possible to lend my voice to things that matter. So when he's talking about all that academics, remember she's also a fun gym-going Ronaldo Esquire type.
Well, apologies, Mrs. Chidiebere, that I left all of that out. Well, I guess...
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. I just needed something to break the ice. Okay. So now this is one of the most iconic images in the world of sports, especially in Olympism. If you're a fan of the Olympics, you know that the Olympics is one of the biggest sports. Now this happened, this image, as you can see, it's obviously in black and white. That was because it happened 53 years ago. Now, 53 years after this infamous protest by Tommy Smith and John Carlos of the United States at the podium in the 1968 Mexico Olympics, protesting the plight of victimized Black citizens in the country. Now, unfortunately for these guys, at the time, they were dismissed. They were called a lot of things. It made no sense to a lot of people. They were ostracized from the national organization. But fast forward to 2019, and the same people who were sent out of the national camp did not participate just because they had the nerve to have a voice, where they've been inducted into the USOP's Hall of Fame as one of the most iconic people in the world. These are those athletes. They look a little bit older, but what these iconic images, both images are trying to show you is that it might take long, it might not be as fast, but I can tell you that as long as you're not quiet, as long as your voice, you speak on and as when due, things begin to happen. Now, this was 53 years ago. Fast forward to today, where you have athletes, basketballers, footballers, baseball players, tennis players, boxers, and every kind of athlete you know and can think of having a voice in things that happen, changing the environment. James has been told to shut up and dribble. A lot of Kipanik lost his endorsement and was ostracized and lost his job basically just because he had a voice. But one thing that is peculiar about all these people is that no matter how much you think that something is not working, at the end of the day, it actually works because the voice of these people were heard. Now, for every, at least the Premier League game that was played in the 2020-2021 season, the players took a knee in protest or in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not just the Black Lives Matter. We know how impactful Odion Ighalo's voice was after scoring those goals for Manchester United and deciding to use the opportunity and the platform in which he had to speak against the treatment of Nigerians and those of them and those who lost their lives at the Lekki toll gate. We saw other Nigerian athletes like Osimhen demonstrate by pulling up a shirt. Sometimes it's not about what you say, it's what you do and what you show. Now, basically what this masterclass is trying to teach you is that the athlete, as an athlete, you have a voice. And the voice of an athlete is respected, is acknowledged, and it carries authority. It takes a lot for people to leave their houses or leave what they're doing to watch you, even if they don't watch you live. If they're watching you on TV or following the processes at which you're going. Everybody knows people who played, at least the UAM team, the team that won the HiFL. Most people, especially in my field, in the media, we begin to know the names of these athletes. And when they speak, they are written about. That's what you are about. And as a community member, your voice is respected because, come on, we look up to athletes because we live vicariously through them. The voice is acknowledged because really we want to believe that the people we're looking up to, that they have the authority and have done their research before they come out to speak. And it carries authority because people actually listen. The most emphatic part of an athlete's voice carrying authority was last year during the pandemic, when the UK government wanted to cut off the charity fair or the child care fair that was given to UK children. But Manchester United's forward, Rashford, spoke up for them and even offered to pay some part of it just so that the government does not pull out. It was a lot of argument, but at the end of the day, he got his way and the kids were fed on and as well due. So that's the voice of an athlete. Another voice that you need to keep in your head is how much we've been able to talk about things in our society and have athletes, footballers, and every other person who has relevance in the sports industry chip in and make things different. Now, your authority and your voice as an athlete goes a whole lot further because, like I said earlier, the Olympics is one of the, if not the biggest sports event in the world. Now, the IOC used to have a rule that limited athletes from expressing themselves. Remember, 53 years ago in 1968 in Mexico, because of those protests that were made, the IOC was like, okay, no more protests at the Olympics. You can say whatever you want to say, but don't do it during the games. But because of how popular the voice of an athlete have gotten since then, especially in the last 5 years, this rule has been changed. And in this recommendation, Rule 50 states that an athlete can express themselves on any situation in press conferences, team meetings, interviews, and even on social media, which is where athletes are using the platform they are using to express themselves. Now, additional opportunities to express views now is at opening ceremonies. Now, I can imagine what the Tokyo Olympics will be like because there will be voices heard in that games. In Olympic Village branding, through digital messaging, and through social media campaigns. Now, these are opportunities. I'm sharing this Rule 50 with you to show you how empowered an athlete has become to use their voice to learn, to bring change to their communities. Now, as a student athlete or a growing athlete, there are places in which you can share or lend your voice to. Social issues, social injustices. All of us, or most of us at least, took part in the NSAS campaign. It's not just about going out to demonstrate or going out to carry placards. What are you saying? What are you tweeting? How are you behaving around others? Domestic violence. Do you look away when you see your neighbor hurting someone that they're not supposed to hurt? What do you do about that? Equality. How do you lend your voice to these situations? Now, in this case, the fact becomes, what do you do about your society? What do you do about your community? What is the interesting thing about your community that starts you off to trying to lend your voice to a change? Who is your community? Your community can be a group of people, the people who you live around, or even your classmates. Those are your community. How do you lend your voice as an athlete? Remember, earlier I said, an athlete's voice has authority. An athlete's voice is respected. How do you live up to the standards? That's the question. How will you do this? It's by capacity building. What can you do for your community? Like I defined community as not just, usually in Nigeria, we define community as people who live around you. But it goes beyond that. The people you hang around, the guys you play football with, the guys you play basketball with, the people on your social media, those are your community. What can you do for your community as a student athlete? What happens to cleanliness in the community? How do you foster change in your community, starting with you as a person? Those are the thoughts that should go into our day-to-day existence as athletes. How do you live your life in such a way that your life becomes a reflection that someone else wants to emulate? Yes, the athlete comes out to say that it's unfair that they get, it's unfair that athletes are made to live up to a certain standards just so that they can properly represent their communities. But that is the standards at which you are placed at. How else can you do this? By community development. Like I said, you are beyond a voice. You are a symbol. How symbolic are you living as an athlete? Are you the one who will watch and cheer on the pitch one day and the one who makes trouble on the streets the next day? Those are things that you have to consider in lending your voice. I choose to go beyond what we say because your voice sometimes goes beyond what you say. Now, when I was working with TVC, there were things I couldn't tweet, even if I felt them, because it represented the organization in which I worked for. Or even if I put a disclaimer, it still puts a taint on the organization. Now, as a symbol of your community, what are you doing? What exactly do you contribute to the rest of the society? What are you doing? What can be done in your community? Have you looked around you? There are no proper waste bin system. You see kids on the street all the time. There are things that we can do ourselves in your schools. How do you take care of the facility in your school? Are you one of those guys that would sit on the post or forget to take one of the cones in just because you think the school can afford it? What's your characteristic? What can be done in your community? Look around you. Mostly in Nigeria, we blame the government or a lot of our situations on those on authority, but there are several things we can do as individuals. And that is why asking yourself this critical question is very important. And most importantly for me is a healthy environment. What are you doing to make your environment healthy? Remember, I said your social space. Social media has become a very important part of our day-to-day lives these days, that your social space has to represent you. You cannot retweet things that don't reflect who you are. When you think of Odion Igalo, for footballers that live in Ajegunle, the first thing that comes to your mind is his foundation and what he's doing for young footballers in his community. When you think of Azizat Oshuala, you think of how many girls she's helping get into the football space or just go to school, and it's about your space. What do you do with your space? Not just the people you talk to on a day-to-day level, but your social space. You have to protect your social space. What do you do with that space? And how do you make a change in an environment or even in our situation, especially in Nigeria right now, where it doesn't seem like nothing is working. But like I said, it might take time. It might seem like it's not working, but it is working. Now, he's one, probably in my own thoughts, the best basketballer that ever played the game. LeBron James said, a call to action for all professional athletes, in this case, even non-professional athletes. First of all, you have to educate ourselves, explore these issues, speak up, use our influence, and renounce all violence. And most importantly, go back to our communities. This is very important. Invest our time, our resources, help rebuild them, help strengthen them, and help change them. We all have to do better. I think if you're taking anything away from here is that remember that your community is important and you have to always go back and you have to do better. It starts with you. It starts with me. And that's how much we go. Now, in conclusion, because I think basically it's asking ourselves who we are, how much we see ourselves, and what we are willing to contribute. I'm telling you that athletes have more power than ever to change the world right now. I have shown you examples. I have shown you insights. I have called athletes, professional athletes. And for you, you might wonder, what does lowly me, who is a team player in the Unilag Marines, or a sports director in my school, or just a normal sports lover who is a young person can do? I have listed a couple of questions you can ask yourself to find out what you can do for your community and where and how to lend your voice. That's what I have to say. And finally, before we go into the Q&A or the questions, I want you to realize that you have to always represent what you would like to see. If you're one who wants peace, you have to represent it. Your space has to be good. Your social space has to represent who you are. Your community, you have to be the one who makes the change, because nobody's going to make it for you. Thank you very much.
Okay, awesome presentation. Thank you very much. I personally enjoyed your presentation, and yes, I agree, you're an MVP, even with this presentation. So take it from me, and I think the rest of the participants agree. That was very swift, that was precise, it was excellent. The way you brought out everything. I particularly think the issue around athletes being able to not just speak, but actually act in terms of showing they have a voice. It's an issue that has been an issue of concern, particularly in African sports, Nigerian sports, because most of the times what we seem to be seeing is that, a revolution starts in the West and then we're trying to actually replicate it here. We've not seen many situations where Africa was the one who was leading the way. And I would really want to know, with your experience, particularly being a voice yourself, being a journalist and actually following the game, can you say there's something on the fact that athletes can also lead in terms of inspiring the type of change in their environment, particularly when you put a system in place that makes athletes understand that, okay, we're not just parts of the society, we are just like the politicians and just like the other administrators, we are also leaders. And then I think that would actually be able to make us more responsible in terms of what positions we take.
Okay, if I got your questions correctly, how can athletes represent the leadership they want, if I'm getting you right? Or how can they represent being part of the leadership? Now, that's why we have the Nigerian University Games and organizations like the High Institution Football League. It's not just about the football games on the pitch. You have students who are, what do they call them now? Match commissioners and students who are actually like representing their own students in their team. That's a branch of leadership. There's the volunteerism in it. And in the World University Games, you have the volunteer leadership. Being a part of a university student is already a call to duty to know that you are part of a responsible society. And that alone gives you a voice to show what you can do. Now, how can an athlete feel or know that they have as much voice as the politicians? What you have to do is go to the social spaces right now and know that as tiny as sometimes we feel irrelevant as our voices are, people actually hear us. Those thoughts. That's why I started with, and the topic is very comprehensive, with your own community. It's your space. You can't affect everybody, especially at the level at which we're at, like being a student athlete. You can't start influencing the world. Yes, you can, but sometimes, or mostly at our level, is to start in a small space as possible. Influence the people around you, make a change, be the leadership you want to have. And from there, we can now start negotiating on how to actually use the power that comes with having a voice with authority.
Okay, thank you very much for that response. So, Mrs. Chidiebere, with your experience, as a sports writer over the years, and of course, I've seen that you've done a couple of research that you've published on the leverage that young girls or women particularly should have in terms of having not just a voice, but actually having equal opportunities in terms of sport. How can you really say that with the situation we have now in Nigerian sports, women are finally beginning to have their voices heard in that area? Because watch female football in Africa, it's almost like you're actually watching men actually playing a second game. You know, we're still yet to begin to see a situation where women are actually playing as women and are not trying to be men to actually be shown some level of respect. And I believe that some of the advocacies have been towards ensuring that women actually have a chance to play for who they are, and then people get to watch them, actually watch them completely because they are women. And of course, you should enjoy watching women also play the game. And of course, even in other sports. So what has your work in this area really in terms of results? Are you encouraged? Do you think there's more that could be
done? There's always more to be done. It's encouraging, yet not at the level at which we want it to. The 2019 Women's World Cup recorded over 1 billion views globally on TV. That's a record for a competition of that magnitude. But equality in sports opportunities, I can go as far as saying, unfortunately, the HiFL only has a men's competition. That's what we're talking about. Creating equality for both men and women is, or both male and female athletes, becomes, dicey. And people would always go back to the conversation, incorrect as it might seem, the women's football is not as interesting, or women's sports, except if it's sports like gymnastics or pole vault or athletics, where they have to wear certain things. But we're moving beyond that, because women are actually now voicing their issues. Just like what happened with the USA's NCAA, where they created a fantastic gym for the men and had 12 dumbbells for the female in the same space. But the athletes, they spoke up. They used their space. They used their community to push for change. They put it up on social media, and before you knew what was happening, they had the same, if not better than what the men had, in the same space that the community said, the NCAA authorities had said, we couldn't put it because there was no space. They looked for an excuse. But in today's society, where social media, and especially even the conventional media, is now allowing people to speak their minds and giving space for people to voice out their opinions, it's becoming better and better for us as women. And for the fact of people watching women's sports for women's sports, I think people have always watched women's sports, or let's use the most specific, football. Women's football is, if you go into a crowd where women's football is playing, it's probably where you find the most families. You find mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, child, because it's friendly, it's beautiful, and it's entertaining, and women actually play football. The statistics released by FIFA World Cup had some immense data that shows that women has moved beyond, can they really play, to, they really do play well. So it's about how much we are willing to get rid of our initial biases. In this country, or the Super Falcons of Nigeria is the most successful team in Africa. And I say that with confidence because they've gone to 8 World Cups. They've won the Nations Cup so many times, yet they are not recognized. The first symbol of football success in Nigeria still remains the Super Eagles, or even sports success in Nigeria remains the Super Eagles. So I think it's all about the bias that we place on certain things. How accommodating are you to the fact that women's sports are actually interesting? Do we just watch because, oh, they are sisters or it's what's on TV? Or do we pay interest? Let me shock you. During the Second World War, or during and after, just immediately after the Second World War, the most interesting thing that was happening in England was the Women's League. It was so big that when Everton plays football, they filled out stadiums. And after the war, the men couldn't generate as much attention. So, of course, some men went to the FA and said, the women couldn't play, blah, blah, blah. And that was how they stopped women from playing in England at the time. So, like I said, it's all about biases. How open-minded are we? How invested are we in promoting women's sports and giving opportunities to young girls to actually express themselves and be part of the community? And it also comes back to our parents. Do we allow our sons to go out and play or register them in clubs and expect the girls to stay home? Those are the things that has to be corrected if we're going to give equal opportunities to everyone to take part in the game.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. I think we had a small connection issue.
Okay.
But it's up. We're back now. Okay, so thank you for your thoughts on that. And I just wanted to also inform you that currently we just have a high institutions football league, and that's for just men. But in the near future, we're actually going to have a league that also encompasses women. And currently, even though we don't have that yet, we have a volunteer force that spans across over 1,000 students across Nigerian universities, and most of these students are surprisingly girls, and they do an amazing work in terms of supporting what happens.
Yeah, amazing.
So they show a lot of leadership, they show a lot of, and that's only underscores how much women can be able to bring in terms of making sports generally very beautiful. So we hope that, of course, when the female football league starts, we'll be able to remind them that Chidiebere Ezeani will be coming to actually watch one of the games and remind them that she was one of the voices that stood up to ensure that they started actually playing. So we're excited to share those thoughts with you. And of course, we actually also want to know you're the media and marketing lead for the Nigerian Universities game. So you know everything about the media relations and all of the partnerships that have gone on between NUGA and the High Institutions Football League. Just to share your thoughts, are you satisfied with what all this is translating into? And do you feel the excitement across the country, how universities are beginning to see sports differently? And what are really your thoughts about it?
Okay, first of all, the High Institution Football League was well conceived. It was needed at the time it was gotten, and we're glad to be a part of it. What it means is it refocuses what the Nigerian University Games have been doing since 1966, which is bringing sport at its core, not just leading to professionalism, but actually all the values that Sports for All brings to us. Like you said, the women might not be playing, but there's the volunteerism aspect of it that allows you to express your leadership role, your ability to help others. And don't forget, basic entertainment and pride in your school, which is really the essence of us having any kind of games in school. So the competition brings pride. You want your team to be in that final four stage to make sure that you have the pride of path. When you go out and say, oh, we won this competition or we won that. So I feel like we're in the right path. And for the Nigerian University Games, we're working towards creating just like this football competition so that the other athletes are not left out. We're working on creating championships for other competitions like karate, tennis, basketball, just so that every other student who is not a footballer feels as engaged. Like I said, the High Institution Football League came in timely, it came in effectively, and it's helping build the next generation of stars. We already have 2 or 3, I think, of them in the Nigerian Professional Football League. And I know of one, I think his mates call him Jaguar, who now plays abroad. So these are platforms that can lead to professional leagues, but it also a shared experience for others, even if you don't go professionally. The shared experience and the pride in school is really what is paramount.
Okay, thank you. One of our listeners has actually sent in a question here about in acting or looking like men in the field of play. I think it's something I already mentioned before. I think there's this force feeling that it gives them some form of confidence, or they actually think it makes them perform better. So as somebody who is more informed about what sport is, and of course, I'm sure you've worked on some form of psychology or what an athlete's state of mind should be if they actually have to go into the game of play. Do you really think this mentality is healthy? And if it's not, what can you say to women who act like this?
First of all, it's not an act. A person's choice of what to wear should never be a question of who she is and how she plays. Now, let me give you an instance. Every time, even till now, I know I've gained a few pounds, that I step onto the pitch, people are like, she's a woman. And then they think it's that easy. So first of all, as a woman, you're in sports, especially in football, you're undermined. You're thought not to be as good as the men, even when you were better than them. So when they actually see you play, they're like, oh, okay, she's really good, you know? But that has nothing to do with the way they choose to dress. People still work in corporate organizations and would rather wear sneakers than high heels. Nobody is going to tell them that, oh, they're wearing sneakers because they needed to keep their morale high. It's just a choice of what to wear. And people shouldn't be put in a box. Oh, as young as she is, because she's interested in sport. Like I said, so our parents and the adults in a child's life can also shape the way they think. You see a young girl who is interested in sports and she's not interested in the more feminine sports like gymnastics or tennis. She's interested in football or basketball. Now, the attire for football and basketball are short. For basketball, sleeves, and for football, t-shirt. So she gets comfortable wearing those things. So that doesn't make her, and then of course, the society also automatically labels her a tomboy. So in the psychological aspect of it, you could say, yes, when somebody does not appreciate your reality and choose to put you in a stereotype, you know, they don't want to see you as a girl who plays sports. Instead, they think that every girl who plays sports has to be a man or has to be a boy. Hence the word tomboy, you know, she's trying to be a man. They don't try to be men. They just like to wear jeans, t-shirt. Sometimes they prefer to sag and wear a face cap. If you saw me on the road right now, if you saw me on the road right now wearing jeans, sneakers, and t-shirt, you wouldn't call me a tomboy. You wouldn't say, oh, she's dressed like that because she thinks she needs the confidence. No, you would say, oh, it's what she chose to wear. That is if you even pay attention. So like I said, it's a stereotype of what our society has led us to believe. And I also think, like I said, it's a choice of what to wear. You go to the Super Falcons as an instance, and there are those of them you wouldn't recognize on the streets if you saw them, because in the analogy of the society, they dress like girls, you know? So yeah, that's basically what the conversation is around. They don't necessarily act like choose to act like men. It's just the way they are. And it's the unfortunate, I don't want to use the word curse, but it's the unfortunate thing about being, it's one of the things we're trying to change about being female. When a female is assertive, she's talked up as bossy. When a female chooses to wear jeans, she's thought of as a boy. But sometimes, it's all in that sphere where we have to choose what we say about people and sometimes ignore it for what it is, which is the way they have chosen to live their lives.
Okay, talking about opportunities, you haven't done badly for yourself at all. I mean, you're an accomplished sports writer, you're a media and marketing officer, you're a journalist, you're a media correspondent for FISO and lots more. A lot of young people are listening to you now are really wondering, like, you look pretty young and you've achieved all of these heights. What are the lessons you think we can actually draw from your journey? And what are the opportunities that you would want other young people to actually look out for, particularly because you've gone through this road and I believe you've seen it, not all, but almost, like you've gone past it a very fair length.
Okay, first of all, don't spend all your time on Twitter just reading up on celebrities and how David De Gea is the worst thing that happened to Manchester United since yesterday. But I got to know about the World University Games on Twitter. 2014, I was just going through the feed and I saw an opportunity.org. I went through it and there are all these opportunities you could find online. And all you have to do is dedicate yourself to actually, some of the most difficult part is completing the forms because they are very detailed. Give your time to doing things you're dedicated to and things you love. I love sports. I wanted to, when I couldn't play sports, I knew I had to do the closest thing to it. Of course, before I can get to coaching, I have to get in the sphere. So doing and studying mass communication in school got me an edge up. When I wanted to go do my internship, because you're required to do that before you graduate, I chose media houses that I knew that had the potential to train me, especially when it had to do with their sports presenters. When I got into the stations themselves, I was deliberate enough to be like, can you put me in the sports department instead of the news or entertainment? And those worked. But for the other, getting there, it's time and dedication. Being able to endure, especially if you want to be a sports journalist in Nigeria, you have to do what they call pay your dues, even if as much as possible. Right now that I foster some young Nigerian students, sports journalists in campuses, I try as much as possible to give them not just an opportunity, but also give them appreciation for what they do, which is what I did not get in my own time. So basically, it's just like everything about life. If you like it, you will chase it. I'll tell you, I do what I do right now because I love the university sports scene. I went to the World University Games as part of the Young Reporters program, and I realized how much more we could do with our grassroots or our university sports system. And since then, I have tried getting into the African scene, and I felt that to be able to effectively give something, I had to learn more. Hence, I went back to social media again to look for a master's degree program. that I didn't have to pay for. So I found a sports management program in South Korea. I applied, I got in. And like you said, here I am. I feel like I am capable enough, or at least in a very good position to impact what I have learned and try to practicalize them in the position I have found myself in. So it's about knowing, first of all, knowing what you want and looking for the means to go about it. Don't spend all your time on Twitter, on internet, on just anything. Seriously, dreams can be had on the internet.
Very well. We congratulate you on all the successes you've made, and we believe that you continue to remain a shining example to a lot of sports and non-sports enthusiasts, especially young people. And today we've learned how to, of course, be a voice to influence the type of change we want in our society. And I think it doesn't go far from there, coming from a perspective of somebody who is helping administer media and marketing for Nuga on behalf of sports. We're so positive that, of course, this engagement would really help a lot of young people listening across the world today. And concerning the roles which you have played, particularly with respect to the relationship between Nuga and HiFL, and knowing that HiFL has a burning passion to actually support the revolution of Nigerian sports through end-to-end engagement of young people across tertiary institutions. What would you like to see moving forward in terms of helping realize this goal? Because we know that you already agree that sports is a major area that universities, the government, and other groups should actually invest in. But looking at what HiFL is doing, it's a completely different ball game, and it's not something that we've seen around for a very long time. So what can you say in terms of adding your voice with your experience and what you've seen across the world, what we can do to actually get there better and faster?
Okay. First of all, before I take that, there is another question here. It says, what's the plan of the federal government? I feel that's what the FG stands for women's growth in football. As of now, we know that women football, the NFF, they organize things the way their constitution permits. And right now, they're beginning to get in more women who actually are interested in development of the game. So I think they're on the right path. We'll see how that goes. Now, coming to what you asked about the HiFL and its influence and what I think should happen in the future. Number one, introduce a women's competition we can play. Two, it's timely. It's inculcating everybody because, like I said, it brings the pride of school and the pride of self and even leads to professional competition. It's proven itself over time, and sport has proven itself over time to be a catalyst for change. It engages the young people and takes them away from trouble. It gives them social exposure. It allows them to meet people of the same kind and help them develop not just physically, but mentally as well. Because for you to be a sports person, you have to be able to take disappointment as well as you take victory, which essentially is a level of psychological growth. It allows you to learn the essence of leadership and also followership, because it takes a lot to be on the pitch and you feel like you've been fouled and the referee is not blowing the whistle. So it takes a lot not to, be aggressive in that situation. So those are the things it's bringing. And like I will keep repeating, the HiFL at the time it came into board was timely, because the last time Nigeria had a football competition was in mid or late 1990s. And we saw footballers like, I know some, Sheyi Olofinjana, who played for Wolves in England. He is one of the shining stars from those competitions. And now we have players that we can refer to as the players who have come off the HiFL competition. We should expect this competition to be continuous. I am hoping, and like a Nigerian, praying hard that it doesn't stop halfway. If we can, in the next 10 years, be writing histories on what happened in the HiFL in 2018, then that would be a very good one for Nigerian football and the university system, because what time does is time grows events like this. Errors are corrected, things are added, things are removed, and at the end of the day, you have a complete package. I also think a more concentration from the media on university sports is essential. And that's why I mentioned earlier that I foster a couple of students, journalists, by creating a website. It's called Glitz Sport. What we do is basically give these students, journalists, an opportunity to report on sports activities that are happening in their schools. This gives them, you learn to write because the articles you submit are edited, re-edited, and sent to you. Sometimes you're taught what kind of questions to ask instead of the ones you ask. That's fostering the process of journalism. And also it gives them a backup work, because everybody experiences the same thing where you are applying for a job and they're asking you, can I see a portfolio? And you have none. Yeah. So that gives them that. And also it enables them to learn to communicate appropriately even before going into the field. We have this notion of substandard journalism in Nigeria, which is so not true. We have good journalists and those who have chosen to further themselves. So helping to do that, the HiFL can inculcate a small reporters program into its processes and have, instead of having, or relying on the traditional media to get into broadcasting each event, people don't always want to know about who won because that's a normal result. I want to see, oh, she came with her baby to the stadium, or his grandma came to watch him for the first time play. Those social interest stories are actually what makes this. Like I said, the pride in school, the environment is the stories that should be told, not just the results. And really, there's no professional media that is going to report on all this for the HiFL if you don't get the students' body involved. And up until you create a women's event, there should be some, just like the masterclass, but things that can be done within the stadium, teaching protection, self-defense, and something like, just even if it's at halftime. So like I said, I hope the HiFL continues to grow, because with time, things are dropped, things are picked up, things are redefined, and things are made better.
Well, thank you so much. Those thoughts are actually very strong points, and I think we've taken note of them. Some of them we're already working on, others we have been implementing. Like particularly you talked about writers, the writers platform. So we actually have a team of media handlers. So for every institution that's in the HiFL, they actually have a student who does their media and publicity roles. So they cover the teams, they do interviews and all of that. And we're hoping that, of course, that group will be more organized with the type of experience we've listened to you pour out today, where we'll be excited to probably have you do something like a mentor class for them or something, just so they're able to actually get better at their job. So they are able to tell stories of what happens at HiFL in their campuses. And of course, the female football team, which is going to come up, I believe that would also be worked on eventually. And we're so really, really excited, because we know that when that comes up, probably we're going to be seeing you around. Today I'm seeing you on TV, but I look forward to the day when I'll have to actually sit beside you. Probably we just have some popcorn and watch a female game in the highest football league. So thank you so much, Ms. Chidiebere, for an exciting and impactful time. We are so excited to have you. You actually allowed us deep into. We know that your Nuga is you. So as long as we remain partners, we are going to be having you over and over again. Share this type of knowledge with our global audience. Thank you for the honor you've done us today, and we look forward to having more of these partnerships, not just with Nuga, but even with individual persons like you. On behalf of the audience, I want to say a very big thank you. Our best wishes remain with you. And for today's session, we've had Mrs. Chidiebere speak to us on what sharing your voice as an athlete should be. And of course, that doesn't just involve people who play on the pitch or who play in the sport. It involves those who also support the game. And I think that we already learned a lot today. We invite you to join us for our future master classes. One will be holding on Saturday. I think that will be the final class we'll be having for this season. Go to www.hiflng.com/masterclasses and you'll be able to join us and participate in that masterclass. It's been an exciting series for this season already. We thank the likes of Ms. Chidiebere who have done us the honors of speaking to us. We've been listening to masters at different levels. And I believe that what you have done today, Ma, would actually go down in history as one of the genuine sacrifices and commitments that veterans in the Nigerian sports sector had contributed in ensuring that collegiate sports does not just start, but survives in Nigeria. So thank you once again for creating time to be with us. So we look forward to having you some other time.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for everyone who created time to listen to me. I hope I was as impactful as he's heaped on, and contact me if you need any help.
Okay, so thank you. Until next time, bye.